Order, order. We now move to Clause 73. Clause 73 was debated with Clause 72, so we will proceed straight to the question. That's Clause 73, stand part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now come to Clause 74. The question is that Clause 74 stand part of the bill. Minister Emma Reynolds.
Yeah. Mrs Vaz, it's a great pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Mrs Vaz, Clause 74 makes changes to the main rates of the Climate Change Levy, or CCL, with effect from the 1st of April 2026. The government is increasing the main rates of CCL on gas, electricity and solid fuels by RPI to maintain the incentive for businesses and the public sector to be more energy efficient. Since 2001, CCL has encouraged businesses and the public sector to be energy efficient by adding a tax on the non-domestic supply of energy. The government has announced a national mission to make Britain a clean energy superpower and accelerate our journey to net zero, and improvements in energy and resource efficiency will play a significant role in reducing industrial emissions in the 2020s. Delivering on this mission will help make the UK energy independent, protect bill payers, create good jobs and tackle the climate crisis. The previous government followed a trajectory of rebalancing the gas and electricity rates over a 5-year period to reflect that electricity emissions are progressively lowering due to the increasing contribution of renewable and lower emission energy in electricity generation. The CCL rates for electricity and gas equalised in April 2024, and at the autumn statement 2023, under the last government, rates were frozen for the year 25-26. Now this rebalancing has been achieved, uprating the main rates on gas, electricity and solid fuels from April 26 will continue to provide an incentive for energy efficiency. The government also announced at Autumn Budget 2024 that the main rate of CCL on LPG will continue to be frozen. This is to ensure better consistency between LPG and other portable fuels for commercial premises not connected to the gas grid, for example kerosene, which is zero rated under fuel duty. The changes made by Clause 74 will increase CCL rates on gas, electricity and solid fuels by RPI with effect from April next year. Non-domestic energy supply users will see an increase on their CCL bill of around 0.025 pence per kilowatt hour of gas or electricity supplied. The rate on solid fuels will increase by 0.2 pence per kilogram. However, participants of the Climate Change Agreement Scheme are eligible to pay reduced rates of CCL in return for meeting negotiated energy efficiency and carbon targets. The CCA scheme enables energy efficiency industries to receive discounts of up to 92% on their CCL bill. The new 6-year scheme, announced on the 16th of October, will provide an estimated £1.9 billion of relief to 2,600 businesses in 53 industrial sectors over its lifetime. Overall, we expect a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions as a result of this clause in comparison to freezing the rates. In conclusion, Mrs Vaz, the changes made by this clause will help to incentivise businesses to improve their energy efficiency, thereby progressing the government's climate objectives, which are vital for the UK's long-term economic prosperity and indeed our energy security. I therefore move that this clause stand part of the bill.
Yeah.
Shadow Minister Gareth Davis.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As the Minister has said, Clause 74 amends the main rates of the Climate Change Levy from April 2026 in line with RPI for electricity, gas and other taxable commodities, while continuing to freeze the rate for LPG. We won't be opposing these measures and this clause. I was pleased to see that the government confirmed its plans to extend the climate change agreement scheme at the budget. This scheme does allow energy-intensive industries to claim a discount on the climate change levy, subject to those industries taking steps towards increasing energy efficiency and reducing emissions. At Autumn Statement 2023, we announced a new 6-year CAA scheme, and I'm glad, genuinely pleased, that the government has chosen to reaffirm our announcement and take this forward following consultation. However, as you may expect me to do, I do want to raise one area with her. There have been several reports in recent weeks regarding the UK chemicals industry, including at oral questions, so this won't be a surprise to the Minister, for which the climate change and CCA scheme are directly relevant, as she will know probably better than me. Now, Sir Jim Radcliffe has warned that the UK chemicals industry is at risk of extinction. His firm Ineos has closed its synthetic ethanol plant at Grangemouth this month, which will result in many jobs being lost. This was the last remaining synthetic ethanol plant in the country. And given the ongoing concerns, I'd be grateful if the Minister could provide an update on what consideration has been given to the UK chemicals industry in calibration of these policies, but also given that the UK chemicals industry, as you will know, is the third largest manufacturing sector in this country. It contributes some £30 billion to our economy, employs directly 138,000 people across, again, the country, and has 4,100 jobs. I presume the Chancellor has met with the sector, but I'd just like to hear her confirm that, given how topical this is, given how concerned the industry is, and how widely reported the issues have been. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in the debate? Yep. Angus MacDonald.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am, as always, speaking on behalf of the Highland Industries. In rural areas, only electricity or kerosene is available. So mains gas is not available. If you are an electricity user, you pay 4 times more than if you're a mains gas user for your energy. So a hotel on the island of Skye would be paying 80,000 versus one in a city paying 20,000. This is causing enormous issues for people in the windiest, coldest, darkest part of Great Britain. And 50%, well, substantially more. The reason for the big disparity, as many people know, is that the tariffs and the taxes are on electricity largely rather than gas. And of course, electricity is largely renewable. And so in my constituency, people look out the window at wind farms, but yet we're still paying 4 times the price for our energy than they are in the cities. And I wonder if the Minister could elaborate on what could take place, which would make us more competitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spence. Well, first of all, let me say I welcome the opposition's support for the clause, and indeed I think there is, and has been for quite some time, cross-party support on the CCA scheme, and I welcome what the Shadow Minister said about the opposition supporting the extension of that scheme for energy-intensive industries. He asked me about the UK chemicals industry, who are, of course, as he said, a very valuable sector of our economy, and they are obviously included in the climate change agreement scheme, which exists to ensure that businesses for whom energy makes up a larger proportion of their operating costs and are at higher risk of carbon leakage are supported to make changes to their processes to reduce their energy intensity. So obviously it is concerning, the example that he provides, but we have taken measures to help those industries with coping with the fact that they are energy intensive. So I hope that answers his question. As to whether the Chancellor's met with him, I don't know. I'm happy to write to him if that would be okay. The Honourable Member spoke about the cost of energy for people in his constituency. Well, we have kept the, as I said in my speech, the rates on kerosene are frozen, which is why we are not uprating the rates on LCG. That, I think, will go some way to helping those in, LPG, those in rural areas. I declare an interest. I am not on the gas either. So we also rely on this form of energy. Yes.
It's not LPG which is the issue, it's electricity, largely, which is the issue, along with kerosene. So I think very few people would use LPG to heat their properties or businesses. It's electricity where there's all the taxes are. And I'd be delighted to show you information, but I'm doing a big thing about it shortly, so I've done a lot of research. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, obviously, kerosene is zero rated, but the effect of this clause is to increase the main rates of CCL on gas, electricity and solid fuels by RPI. That is in line with what we announced at the budget and takes forward those measures. So hopefully will come as no surprise to honourable members.
Thank you. The question is that clause 74 stand part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no.
No.
Division.
Alex Ballinger. Aye. Harriet Cross.
No vote.
Gareth Davis.
No vote.
Paul Kohler.
No vote.
Angus MacDonald.
No vote.
James Murray.
Aye.
Right, okay, so I would advise that we don't need to have a division.
No one's objecting.
And no one's objecting effectively.
I'm going to have to take advice from you. Can I come out?
Yes, of course.
I'm just saying I do want to support this. So that's why.
Oh, that's a whole other. That's
We can take it again. What time do you think it might be? You're abstaining.
So just to explain, I think the honourable member would like to place on record that he's voting against, and I think he accidentally said no vote instead of saying no, but he does want to press it to a division, so we'll start again. Whips are okay.
Alex Ballinger.
Aye.
Harriet Cross.
No vote.
Gareth Davis.
no vote.
Paul Kohler.
No vote.
Angus MacDonald.
No.
James Murray.
Aye.
Tristan Osborne.
Aye.
Gregor Poynton.
Aye.
Emma Reynolds.
Aye.
Oliver Ryan.
Aye.
Blake Stevenson.
No vote.
Alistair Strathern.
Aye.
Christian Wakeford.
Aye.
James Wilde.
No vote.
Yuan Yang.
So the ayes were 9, the noes were 1, so the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Unlock. We now come to clause 75. The question is that clause 75 stand part of the bill. Minister. James Barrett.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Clause 75 increases the lower and standard rates of landfill tax from April the 1st this year. The rates will increase in line with RPI, adjusted to account for high inflation in the period 2022 to 24, and they were first announced in the spring budget of 2024. Landfill tax is charged on material disposed of at a landfill site or unauthorised waste site in England and Northern Ireland. The objective of landfill tax is to divert waste away from landfill and support investment in more circular waste management options, such as recycling, composting and recovery. Now, since 2000, landfill tax has contributed to a 90% decrease in local authority waste to landfill in England. Increasing the lower and standard rates of landfill tax by RPI in recent years has helped to maintain a strong price incentive to divert waste away from landfill. The changes made by Clause 75 will increase the lower rate of landfill tax from £3.30 a tonne to £4.05 a tonne from April the 1st this year. They will also increase the standard rate of landfill tax from £103.70 a tonne to £126.15 from April the 1st. Landfill tax rates are rounded to the nearest 5 pence. In conclusion, this clause increases the rates of landfill tax in line with RPI, adjusted for recent high inflation from April the 1st, 2025, to maintain a strong price incentive to divert waste away from landfill, and I move that this clause stands part of the bill.
Thank you very much. Clause 75 amends the landfill tax rates to increase them in line with RPI, adjusted to account for high inflation in the period between 2022 and 2024. As the Minister knows, when in government we uprated landfill tax in line with RPI in the 2024 and 2023 Finance Acts. Now, as I say, we've made similar measures, but we also reduced the landfill tax gap from £275 million in 2017 to 2018 to £100 million in 2022-2023. So can I ask, how will the government be continuing those efforts, strong efforts, to further reduce this gap, which I know particularly exercised the Minister when he was in opposition and certainly asked me a lot of questions on them. But, Madam Chair, we will not be opposing this clause, and I cannot wait to find out what the Lib Dem position is on this particular one.
The Lib Dem spokesperson doesn't wish to speak on this, and anyone else. We'll move straight to the vote, to the question. The question is that Clause 75 stand
Well, no, I'd like a response.
Oh, I'm sorry, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank the honourable gentleman for supporting these clauses, I believe. I inferred from his comments. And I fondly remember the questions I asked him about landfill tax when we were on the other side of this committee room, or a similar one in this corridor. I can reassure him that the current government is considering the options for landfill tax reform following the call for evidence which was undertaken in 2021, and we will announce further steps in due course. The government is considering options for landfill tax reform, including opportunities to design out opportunities to commit waste crime, including landfill tax fraud, and we will announce next steps in due course.
The question is that Clause 75 stand part of the bill. As many as that opinion say aye.
Aye.
On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now come to Clause 76. The question is that Clause 76 stand part of the bill. Minister James Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Clause 76 increases the rate of aggregates levy from April the 1st in line with the RPI, as forecast by the OPR when this rate was announced at Autumn Statement 2023. Aggregates levy is charged on the commercial exploitation of virgin aggregate, which includes rock, sand and gravel. The object of aggregates levy is to encourage the use of recycled rather than virgin aggregate in construction. The changes made by Clause 76 will increase the aggregates levy from £2.03 per tonne to £2.08. This clause increases the rate of aggregates levy in line with RPI from April the 1st to ensure that the real terms value of the price incentive to manage aggregate more sustainably does not fall in future, and I therefore move that this clause stands part of the bill.
Shadow Minister Gareth Davis.
Thank you very much. Clause 76, as the Minister was saying, uprates the aggregates levy in line with inflation. These provisions in this finance bill are pretty much identical to those that we put forward in the Finance Act of 2024, and therefore it's right that we don't oppose them. Thank you.
And there's no further member wishes to speak. The question is that Clause 76 stand part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. We now come to Clause 77. The question is that Clause 77 stands part of the bill. Minister James Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Clause 77 makes changes to increase the rate of the plastic packaging tax from April the 1st in line with the Consumer Price Index. Now, the plastic packaging tax was introduced on April the 1st, 2022 as part of the previous government's resources and waste strategy. The tax provides a clear economic incentive for businesses to use recycled plastic in the manufacture of plastic packaging, thereby stimulating the collection and recycling of plastic waste and diverting it away from landfill or incineration. Increasing the rate of plastic packaging tax in line with CPI maintains the real terms value of the price incentive to use recycled plastic. The changes made by Clause 77 will increase the rate of the plastic packaging tax as set out in Section 45 of the Finance Act 2021 from £217.85 to £223.69 per tonne with effect from April the 1st. The new rate will affect UK manufacturers and importers of plastic packaging containing less than 30% of recycled plastic. In conclusion, this clause increases the rate of plastic packaging tax in line with CPI from April the 1st to maintain the real terms price incentive to include recycled plastic in plastic packaging, and I therefore move that this clause stands part of the bill.
Thank you. Shadow Minister Gareth Davies.
Thank you very much. As the Minister was saying, Clause 77 uprates the plastic packaging tax in line with inflation. The provisions in this finance bill are pretty much identical to those that we put forward in the Finance Act of 2024, and we will not be opposing them. But just on this particular tax measure, I seem to remember the Exchequer Secretary questioning me about the possibility of an impact report or assessment. I just wondered how much progress he's making with that.
Minister.
Thank you. I'd like to reassure the honourable gentleman the government is making progress across a whole range of issues every day, and we will update the appropriate authorities in the appropriate way at a relevant time.
The question is that Clause 77 stand part of the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. We now come to Clause 78. The question is that Clause 78 stand part of the bill, with which it will be convenient to consider new Clause 9. Minister Emma Reynolds.
Thank you, Mrs Fowles. Clause 78 legislates for the new rates of the soft drinks industry levy to apply from the 1st of April 2025. The soft drinks industry levy came into effect in April 2018, introduced by the previous government with cross-party support, and is considered a successful mechanism for changing behaviour and encouraging reformulation of packaged soft drinks, resulting in reduced sugar content, as seen by the levy's significant success in reducing the sugar content in UK soft drinks by 46%. The levy applies to packaged soft drinks containing added sugar. It has a lower rate which applies to drinks with a total sugar content of 5 to 7.9 grams per 100 millilitres, and a higher rate for drinks with 8 grams or more per 100 millilitres. Producers, manufacturers and importers of liable soft drinks must register, report and pay the levy on the volume of liable soft drinks packaged in and imported into the UK. The levy rates have not been increased since their introduction many years ago in 2018, so have gradually reduced in value against inflation. In 2018, Estil, as they call it, made up approximately 11% of the price of a 330ml can of full sugar Coca-Cola, and in January 2025 it only makes up 6%. Mrs Fowles, uprating the levy in line with inflation will therefore ensure that it remains effective and continues to encourage reformulation by protecting its value in real terms. Clause 78 amends Section 36, subsection 1 of the Finance Act 2017 to reflect the new rates of the levy to apply from the 1st of April 2025. These are £1.94 and £2.59 per 10 litres of prepared drink for the lower and higher bands respectively. The new rates reflect forecasted changes in the Consumer Price Index in the year to the 1st of April 2025, as well as an additional increment to help catch up for previous inflation. The catch-up reflects the 27% CPI change between 2018 and 2024 and will be spread evenly over the 5 rate increases from 2025 to 2029. This is to support soft drink manufacturers to adjust to the higher rates. The rates have also been adjusted to apply per 10 litres rather than per litre, so that rate changes can be made in smaller increments to reflect changes in CPI inflation more precisely. To illustrate, using the current lower rate, 18p per litre becomes 1.80 per 10 litres. I think we could have probably worked that one out. I had been told that there was new clause 9. It was new clause 9, national amendment. New clause 9. Let me speak to new clause 9 with your permission, Mrs. Baz. We do not accept new clause 9, which would require the Chancellor to make an additional statement about the impacts of the measure. The government does not consider this necessary, as the tax information and impact note detailing the anticipated effects of the measure was published at the autumn budget. I would also highlight that the government is taking a gradual approach to restoring the original real terms value of the soft drinks industry levy. From the 1st of April, the levy will still be worth significantly less compared to general prices than it was in 2018. The change we're introducing will protect the real terms value of the levy and build on its significant success by increasing both the lower and higher rates in line with inflation. I therefore move that Clause 78 stands part of the bill.
Thank you, Mrs. Vass. As we heard from the Minister, Clause 78 amends the Finance Act 2017 to uprate the soft drinks industry levy, and that uprating reflects change in CPI index from April 2018 to April 2024, and that represents an increase of 27%. Now, we support the soft drinks levy, but we do have strong concerns about the backdating of the tax rates, and I'll speak to Clause 78 and new Clause 9. As we all know, the consumption of too much high sugar drinks can lead to weight gain and risk of medical conditions, also leading to tooth decay, particularly concern for younger people. And as the Minister pointed out, this levy was introduced by Conservative government with cross-party support precisely to help tackle those issues. And it's been a very successful, highly effective policy, actually delivering against the stated objective of encouraging reformulation. The British Soft Drinks Association have said the levy has achieved its intended goal of promoting significant sugar reduction, and 89% of soft drinks are now non-levy liable. Reformulation has clearly not lost pace, with the volume of soft drinks with less than 5 grams of sugar per 100 ml increasing by 17.5% between April 2023 and March 2024. Our main concern is about the unprecedented backdating of this tax increase, and our new clause will ensure a review is required of its impact. The decision to backdate inflation over an extended period, creating a 27% retrospective increase, appears to have no parallel in recent tax policy, and the backdating is a fundamental departure from the predictability that should be at the heart of tax policy. And given that the levy has been so effective, why does the government see a need for such a large increase? As the British Soft Drinks Association points out, it appears the rationale is primarily focused on the revenue raising rather than public health outcomes. And the introduction of such retrospective elements requires close examination of both precedent and consequences, as demonstrated by examples of duty freezes and restarts in recent years. Comparative excise goods such as alcohol, fuel and tobacco are reviewed annually. In periods where rates have been frozen across several years, they have not then subsequently been subject to those missing years being applied on this basis. Figures from the House of Commons Library calculate what impact a similar backdated increase would have on fuel duty. Following the approach used for the soft drinks levy, if inflation since 2011 was added to fuel duty using RPI, the duty on a litre of petrol or diesel would increase from 57.95 pence per litre to 95.18 pence per litre, a rise of 64%. I'm not sure about the Minister's constituents and my honourable colleagues, but I'm pretty sure that my constituents would be very alarmed at the potential for such a backdated increase to be applied. So is the government now establishing a norm within its tax policies that such backdated increases will happen? Companies making long-term investment choices need certainty. The Exchequer Secretary's used that word many times in this committee. They need certainty to be able to plan to invest in the country. So can the Minister give us her assurance that the government will not pull off similar tax rates in other sectors, particularly with regard to fuel duty? We've also heard concerns about the impact assessment, which had limited engagement, and the measure is expected to generate £95 million worth of revenue by 29-30, yet the assessment does not model how established price elasticity in soft drinks will affect these projections. The assessment acknowledges both reformulation and reduced demand will occur, but provides no quantification of the effects. So I'm interested in the Minister's comments on that. And the assessment does not examine how changes to tax policy without consultation could affect future investment decisions, nor does it explore the market distortions of applying different principles to soft drinks versus other categories. So can the Minister confirm if these issues have been considered, and if not, will they be? And that's why we've tabled new Clause 9, because given the unprecedented nature of the backdated increase and the lack of engagement, the Chancellor should, within 6 months of the Act being passed, make a statement to Parliament about the increase of this levy and its impact, including on reformulation and the sector as a whole. As I said, overall this increase is 27%. We have strong concerns about backdating as a policy and therefore welcome the Chancellor commissioning a review. And this comes at a time when the hospitality drink sector is facing particular financial pressures, new packaging regulations, DRS, of course the infamous jobs tax. Does the Minister really think that applying such a large retrospective increase is the right thing to be doing at this time?
Minister.
Thank you, Mrs. Vaz. I thank the Shadow Minister for reiterating that there is indeed cross-party support in 2018 when the previous government introduced the soft drinks industry levy. And I say gently to him, if the previous government had kept the levy in line with CPI, we wouldn't be in this situation. He asked about what considerations have been made about the impact. Well, as I said in my speech to this clause, the catch-up reflects the 27% CPI change between 2018 and 2024, and because of the considerations of the impact on the soft drinks manufacturers, it will be spread evenly over the 5 rate increases from 2025 to 2029. So I do think that he should consider that we are gradually spreading the increase. And I think it's worth considering those who have supported the government's change in this respect. For example, Barbara Crowther, Children's Food Campaign Manager at Sustain, said it's absolutely right that after 6 years, the government should now increase the penalties for all the companies who have not done enough to reduce the sugar level in drinks. And we urge them to ensure all money raised by the levy is reinvested in children's health. The levy has been globally recognised as a transformative health tax intervention, and modelling studies have associated the levy with up to 5,000 fewer cases of obesity in girls aged 10 to 11 and a 28.6% reduction in hospital admissions for tooth extractions for children under 5. Our government takes these issues very, very seriously. Children's health in terms of the worrying levels of obesity in society, and children's dental health, and that is why we are bringing forward the... I will give way.
Great, Minister, give me way. I wonder if she would address directly the point about backdating and if this represents a change in approach by this government to taxation policy. They've introduced a 27% increase from the date when it was been frozen. As I said, if that applied to fuel duty, it would result in a 64% increase. People will be concerned. Can the Minister give reassurance about this government's approach to taxation?
Minister.
Well, I think it is a little bit of an exaggeration to read into this change that we have introduced because the previous government failed to keep the levy in line with inflation, to somehow infer from that, I'm coming to his point, infer from that that becomes a new norm. It does not. I am certainly not going to write next year's budget or the year after's budget. It's way above my pay grade in any case. But we are introducing this clause precisely because the former government failed to keep this levy in line with inflation.
Thank you. The question is that Clause 78 stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. We now come to Clause 79, with which it would be convenient to consider Clause 80 stand part. The question is that Clause 79 stand part of the bill. Minister Emma Reynolds.
Thank you, Mrs. First. Clause 79 closes a known route for tax avoidance by making changes to the taxation of chargeable gains when a limited liability partnership, LLP, is in liquidation. And Clause 80 closes a loophole through which some taxpayers have attempted to avoid the company tax charge known as Section 455. Turning to Clause 79, The government has become aware of a scheme that is being exploited by tax avoidance promoters involving the transfer of assets into a LLP, which is then liquidated. At the time a member contributes an asset to the LLP, they are not charged tax on the gain accrued since the asset was acquired. This is because it is intended that they are taxed when the asset is disposed of rather than the LP itself. This is similar to the position for conventional partnerships. However, when an LLP is liquidated, it ceases to be tax transparent, becomes treated like a company. But the LLP is only charged tax on their gain since the contribution of the asset. As part of the liquidation, the liquidator could dispose of the LLP's assets back to the contributing member or to a party connected to them, washing out the gains made prior to the asset being contributed to the LLP. The changes made by Clause 79 will create a new occasion when a deemed disposal arises for chargeable gains purposes and will have effect where an LLP enters liquidation on or after the 30th of October 2024. This will ensure that where a member contributes an asset to an LLP that subsequently enters liquidation and the LLP disposes of the asset back to the member or to a person connected to them, they are taxed on the gains on the asset up to the time of its contribution to the LLP. The gain will be treated as accruing at the time of the LLP disposes of the asset. Moving on to Clause 80, a close company is a company owned and run by a small number of people, Mrs. Vaz. In a close company, there are fewer restrictions and less accountability around how the company and its owners interact. The tax charge, known as Section 455 or 455, is a charge on loans to shareholders left outstanding after the company's year end. This charge is remitted if the loan is repaid. The government is aware of the attempted use of coordinated or circular loan arrangements by shareholders in close companies in order to avoid the Section 455 charge and thereby extract funds from their companies untaxed instead of receiving taxable earnings. Mrs. Vaz, as a result of the changes made by Clause 80, where shareholders use circular loan arrangements to extract value from their companies, a tax charge will be applied on the relevant amount withdrawn. This will ensure such arrangements do not avoid a tax charge. The targeted anti-avoidance rule will also be updated to protect against future exploitation. In summary, Clause 79 makes changes to ensure that LLPs are not used to avoid tax on chargeable gains. It forms part of a package of measures announced at the Autumn Budget 2024 aimed at closing the tax gap, cracking down on avoidance and evasion, and strengthening HMRC's powers to tackle promoters of avoidance schemes. The changes made by Clause 80 will close a loophole being exploited by a minority and ensure anti-avoidance rules are more robust for the future. I should be clear, Mrs. Vaz, that the vast majority of close companies and their participators are compliant and pay any tax due. This is a sensible change, this clause, which is proportionate, ensures fairness, and will only affect those few who seek to avoid tax. Our commitment is to ensure a fair and just tax system, and this measure is a step towards upholding that promise. So therefore, I beg to move clauses 79 and 80 stand part of the bill. Thank you.
Shadow Minister Gareth Davis.
Thank you very much. Clauses 79 and 80 tackle tax avoidance in limited liability partnerships and loans to participants, just as the Minister was pointing out. Tax avoidance is something that we in government took very seriously and made some great progress on, and so we will not be opposing this latest measure.
Minister.
I thank the opposition for their support.
Very good.
The question is that Clause 79 stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Clause 80 has just been debated, so we proceed straight to the question that Clause 80 stand part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now come to Clause 81. The question is that Clause 81 stand part of the bill. Minister Emma Reynolds.
Thank you, Mrs. Vaz. Clause 81 makes changes to ensure that the Treasury has the power to make regulations to implement the Crypto Asset Reporting Framework, also known as the CARF. The CARF was developed at the OECD, and the previous government supported the development of the CARF and committed to the UK implementing it. So I hope that they will be supporting this clause. The CARF will require crypto asset service providers to collect, check and report information that identifies their non-UK resident customers and their non-UK resident customers' crypto asset transactions undertaken from 2026. HMRC will then receive and share relevant data with participating jurisdictions for tax purposes from 2027. Other participating jurisdictions will share their data with HMRC where it relates to UK residents, customers of non-UK crypto asset service providers. The increased tax information that the CARF will bring to HMRC is expected to generate additional revenue of £315 million across 2026 to 2029. The government intends to make these regulations in 2025 so that the CARF applies to UK crypto businesses in the UK from the 1st of January 2026. The changes made by Clause 81 will amend existing legislation so that the CARF is added to the list of international arrangements for exchanging information. This will give the Treasury the power to make the CARF regulations to implement the CARF regime so that it applies to UK crypto asset service providers from the 1st of January 2026. This clause is essential so that the government can implement the CARF. I therefore move that this clause stands part of the bill.
Thank you very much. Clause 81 provides the Treasury with the powers to make regulations for the OECD crypto asset reporting framework, as the Minister pointed out. We signed up for the framework when in government, as the Minister pointed out. I just wanted to ask one short question that has come up quite a lot in the industry and perhaps even in her last role outside of politics, and this relates to the naming of this. So this is called the Crypto Asset Reporting Framework, but many in the outside world refer to cryptocurrency. And I just wanted to really ask what the government's position in terms of what a crypto is. Is it a crypto asset or is it cryptocurrency, and what's the difference? I think a lot of people, would appreciate just that clarification on what is a very complex subject. But as I said, we will not be opposing this particular measure. This is something we signed up to, the framework we signed up to in government, and we absolutely will not be opposing it. Thank you.
Minister.
I thank the Shadow Minister for his question. In my view, but I will check on this, a cryptocurrency is a type of crypto asset.
The question is that Clause 81 stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. We now come to Amendment 67, with which it will be convenient to consider Clause 82 stand part. I call James Wilde to move Amendment 67.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vaz. Clause 82 is about enabling HMRC to prepare for the introduction of a new excise duty on vaping products before it's formally provided for in law. And the Amendment 67, which I'm moving, would require that HMRC in doing so must have regard to the desirability of requiring a digital tax stamp to be applied to e-cigarette liquids. 1 million people in England now vape, despite never having been regular smokers, a 7-fold increase in just 3 years, and vape rates are highest amongst 16 to 24-year-olds, hence the measures that are going through in another bill. And like many of the measures we've discussed in committee, this new duty was first announced by the previous Conservative government, and my right honourable friend, the member for Godalming and Ash, announced the introduction of an excise duty on vaping products from October 2026. There's a strong case to take action on the affordability of vapes while ensuring there's a significant differential between the duty on vapes and duty on other tobacco products. And after consultation the last government launched, this government has announced that they will apply a flat rate duty on all vaping liquid from October 2026, set at £2.20 per 10ml of vaping liquid. And Clause 82, if colleagues refer to it, simply provides for HMRC to prepare for the introduction of a new duty. The main provisions will come in future legislation. When new taxes and levies are introduced, it's important to get the implementation right. And after consultation, a single flat rate duty will apply, which should reduce non-compliance and tax avoidance opportunities and be more proportionate both for industry and for HMRC to administer. But it would be helpful if the Minister could... I will give way, yeah.
Can I thank the Honourable Member? Thank you. Can I thank the Honourable Member for his contribution? Is he aware that the Department is already consulting upon digital access for vaping products as part of the vaping products duty, and that this is already going through the process, but we are subject to the position of the vaping products duty in relation to in the committee just down the corridor, it might be said. Thank you.
I'm grateful for the Honourable Member's intervention, and I hope from that contribution he'll be supporting my amendment when I seek to move it for a vote, because of course the government's moving us this direction, so let's get it in the legislation, let's get HMRC working full throttle to make sure that it happens. I hope that's something that he will feel able to support. And as with any new tax, there are risks associated with the duty, and the illicit market could be boosted, increasing the enforcement burden on HMRC and other departments. Dual, one of the largest operators, believes that the government should give HMRC sufficient enforcement powers. At the very least, those should mirror those in relation to tobacco duties. So what steps is the government taking to boost compliance powers and protect against illicit activity in this market? Turning specifically to the Amendment 67, regarding implementation would require HMRC to have regard to desirability of introducing a digital tax stamp to be applied. I'm pleased the government intends to implement a vaping duty stamp scheme to help enforcement bodies and industry in identifying products that are non-duty paid. And I note that in the government's further consultation on compliance measures to complement HMRC's traditional compliance tax activity, the government stated their intention, as the Honourable Member referred to incorporate a degree of digital tracing and authentication into the final stamp design. Digital stamps are harder to counterfeit, they're less prone to damage, they're less likely to fall off products, and they allow for more information to be held and tracked by both industry and HMRC. As Jewel had pointed out, and potentially to other members of the committee, their experience in Canada, where they're required to apply physical duty stamps, has led them to believe digital versions are far better for business and tax authorities alike. An industry needs certainty, and given the government's digital by default approach to taxation, I hope the Minister will be able to give a commitment today that the government does intend to require a fully digital tax stamp. We spoke earlier on one of the clauses of removing a physical stamp from alcohol or spirits, for example. So I don't see why the government won't be able to support my amendment here today. As I set out, we will not be opposing clause 82. I look forward to the Minister's response on the specific points I've raised, but I do intend moving amendment 67.
Amendment 67 proposed to clause 82 as on the amendment paper. The question is that the amendment be made. Minister.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vaz. I thank the Shadow Minister for his comments. I will come to them in just a moment if he will bear with me. I want to just talk more generally about clause 82 before I come to his amendment. Clause 82 makes changes to ensure that HMRC can secure the resource they need to implement vaping products duty. The duty will be legislated for in the Finance Bill 2025 and will come into force on the 1st of October 2026. It will be accompanied by a one-off increase in all tobacco duties to maintain the financial incentive to give up tobacco. The Chief Medical Officer is clear that those who do not smoke should not vape. Introducing a vaping products duty is part of a wider government strategy to tackle vaping among young people, and as the Honourable Gentleman stated in his speech, there are some worrying developments as to the number of young people taking up vaping, and indeed those who do not smoke, including the Tobacco and Vapes Bill and the ban on disposable vapes. The vaping products duty is forecast to raise £525 million of revenue a year by the end of the scorecard to fund vital public services such as the NHS, defence, education and Stop Smoking initiatives supporting a smoke-free UK. In 2023, 12% of the UK adult population used e-cigarettes, the highest rate ever recorded. 1 million people in England now vape despite never having been regular smokers, a 7-fold increase in just 3 years. It's pretty shocking, isn't it, Mrs. Bird? Vaping rates are highest, and I come on to the comments by the Honourable Gentleman, are highest amongst 16 to 24-year-olds with a 15.8% vaping daily or occasionally. Reducing affordability forms part of the government's wider strategy to influence behaviour, especially given the addictive nature of these products. Several countries have already introduced a tax on vaping. There are around 50 countries that have a national tax on vaping products, with most of these targeting liquid as the tax base. The majority target both nicotine-free liquids and liquids containing nicotine. The changes made by Clause 82 will enable HMRC to prepare for the introduction of the new excise duty before it is formally provided for in primary legislation next year. It allows for spending on IT systems and staff recruitment. Now I want to turn to the amendment laid by the Shadow Minister. I thank him for his speech, and I agree with one element of his speech, which is it's absolutely crucial to get the implementation of this right. His amendment would require HMRC to have regard for requiring a digital tax stamp to be applied to e-cigarette liquids. The government does not support this amendment. It deems it unnecessary at this time, as HMRC are already giving due consideration to vaping duty stamps. The decision to introduce vaping duty stamps was supported by respondents to the vaping products duty consultation, who pointed to their use for vaping products in other jurisdictions. HMRC intends to exploit modern technology and digitalisation to ensure the vaping duty stamp scheme targets the specific risks of the illicit vaping market, and he asked some questions about the illicit vaping market I'll come on to in a minute. A technical public consultation on the design of the scheme ran from the 30th of October 2024 to the 11th of December 2024, through which respondents submitted views on digital duty stamps, physical duty stamps, and a combined approach. I said to the Shadow Minister, we are currently analysing the responses to that consultation, and no policy decision has yet been made. So we will communicate in due course a policy decision to balance enforcement decisions and business operations. We will take on board the views of the Shadow Minister, and I thank him again for his amendment. The government remains committed to working with industry to ensure the scheme only creates burdens that are essential to tackle non-compliance, avoidance and evasion. Now, let me try and answer his questions. He asked about illicit trade and whether there's a risk that increasing tobacco duty and introducing a vaping duty will drive up illicit trade. The threat from illicit tobacco needs to be addressed by reducing its availability rather than allowing it to dictate our public health and tax policies. We are consulting on additional robust compliance tools for tackling the illicit trade in vapes, and will collaborate with Border Force to target the illicit trade when the duty goes live. HMRC and Border Force already have a strategy in place to tackle illicit tobacco. I hope that reassures the Honourable Member. He also asked some questions about digital versus physical vaping duty stamps. Vaping duty stamps will support both enforcement and industry in identifying products that are non-duty paid, therefore illicit. They will also help HMRC manage the revenue risks from the initial sell-through period and limit the duty avoidance practice known as forestalling. This is the practice of clearing large quantities of excise goods from duty suspense immediately prior to a rate increase to avoid paying the new tax. With regard to his amendment on digital stamps, the government will not commit to fully digital stamps, as we are analysing consultation responses, and a policy decision will be taken in due course. But I would reassure the Honourable Gentleman that we will, of course, take on board his views.
Yeah. I'll call James Well to respond.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vaz. I'm grateful to the Minister for her response. However, I do think this amendment helps set a clear direction. It's in line with the government's digital by default approach to taxation. It reflects what was in the consultation document. It reflects what industry is calling for. But it does not say that HMRC must introduce such a system. It simply says it must have regard to the desirability of requiring a digital tax stamp. And I specifically worded the amendment like that to allow precisely the points that the Minister has outlined, that there may be a policy decision that, contrary to the government's digital by default tax approach, decides this isn't necessary, in which case all that's been required is HMRC has had to have a proper look at introducing it. So I do want to press my amendment to a vote.
Amendment 67 proposed to clause 82 as on the amendment paper. The question is that the amendment be made. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no.
No.
Division. Lock the doors.
Alex Bellinger.
No.
Nissel Calliston. Harriet Cross.
Aye.
Gareth Davis.
Aye.
Paul Kohler.
No vote.
Max MacDonald. Never. James Murray.
No. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Should we do that again? James Murray.
Been a long day.
No, there was no. Yeah. Tristan Osborne. No. Gregor Poynton.
No.
Emma Reynolds.
No.
Blake Stevenson.
Aye.
Alistair Strathern.
No.
Christian Wakeford.
No.
James Wilde.
Aye.
Yuan Yang.
The ayes were 4, the noes were 9, so the noes have it. The noes have it. Unlock. Clause 82 has just been debated, so we'll proceed straight to the question that Clause 82 stand part of the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now come to Clause 83. The question is that Clause 83 stand part of the bill. Minister Emma Reynolds.
Thank you. Clause 83 enables the Commissioners for HMRC to prepare for the introduction of the UK Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism referred to as CBAM and allows information to be disclosed for the purposes of developing the CBAM. The Government is committed to reaching net zero by 2050, and as we make progress to decarbonise, we must ensure that the effect of our efforts is not undermined by carbon leakage. The best solution to carbon leakage, and let me just define carbon leakage for the benefit of some people in the committee will know, I'm sure, honourable members, but I think it's worth saying what carbon leakage is. Carbon leakage is the movement of production and its associated emissions from one country to another in order to avoid higher levels of decarbonisation efforts and costs. The best solution to carbon leakage risk would be international coordination on decarbonisation and carbon pricing. However, many countries do not yet have domestic carbon pricing mechanisms. Consequently, introducing the UK CBAM will reduce the risk of carbon leakage by placing a carbon price on carbon-intensive goods imported into the UK from 2027. This new tax will enable a charge to be placed on the carbon emissions found in highly traded, carbon-intensive goods imported into the UK from the aluminium, cement, fertiliser, hydrogen, iron and steel sectors. A comparable carbon price will be placed on these goods based off of what they would have incurred had they been produced in the UK under our domestic emissions trading scheme.
Will she give way on that?
Yes, of course I will.
Thank you, Minister, for giving way. I understand the principle of CBAM. However, in practice, for example, when we're talking about fertiliser, if we are importing fertiliser to increase our production of food here, we're therefore going to reduce our imports of food from elsewhere. So while we're importing fertiliser, we're reducing our imports of other food items. So it maybe not balances out exactly, but we're not actually we're not changing how much carbon we're extending abroad because we're just going to be taking it from another mechanism which is not included in CBAM.
I'm not sure I totally follow the logic. I thank you for your intervention. I'm not entirely sure I follow the logic. The purpose of CBAM, as I've said, is to ensure that if a product is produced in another country where it uses carbon, that we don't have leakage across that border. So the overall impact will vary depending on the sector's exposure to CBAM imports relative to their overall input costs and the extent to which they are able to substitute away from these inputs. CBAM imports only make up a small proportion, about 1%, of average UK industry input costs. CBAM liabilities are expected to be small initially, and reliance on inputs of goods within scope across the economy is limited overall. But I'm not sure I follow the logic that somehow imposing CBAM on imported fertilisers will have the effect that she suggests. Mrs. Vaz, the UK Emission Trading Scheme is the UK's primary carbon pricing mechanism. The scheme was established to increase the climate ambition of the UK's carbon pricing policy while protecting the competitiveness of UK businesses. The UK CBAM will only be implemented in sectors where it will effectively mitigate carbon leakage risk and are deemed feasible to delivery. Other sectors that give rise to carbon leakage will be considered for future inclusion. The government announced in the budget that legislation will be introduced in the Autumn Finance Bill 2024 to enable HMRC and HMT Treasury to start to prepare for a new tax. Clause 83 specifically enables the Commissioners for HMRC to prepare for the introduction of the UK CBAM. This clause will also allow a national authority or the UK Emissions Trading Scheme Authority to disclose information requested by HM Treasury or HMRC for purposes connected with the tax, in particular preparing for, developing, implementing and putting into operation the new tax. Apologies. In conclusion, this clause forms the first part of the legislation needed to introduce the UK CBAM in January 2027. I therefore move that this clause stands part of the bill.
Minister James Wallace.
Thank you, Mrs. Vaz. As we heard from the Minister, Clause 83 enables Commissioners for HMRC to prepare for the introduction of CBAM, which will be charged on specific emissions-intensive imports into the UK from the 1st of January 2023. We won't be opposing the measure, but I do want to raise a couple of points. As the Minister said, CBAM is a tax on emissions embodied in certain goods imported into the UK where a carbon price has not been incurred overseas at a rate at least equivalent to the UK. And while I appreciate this is enabling power, the Chartered Institute of Taxation, who I don't think have had a mention yet today compared to yesterday, so get that on the record, have expressed some surprise at how basic the clause is in terms of detail, which simply granting authority to introduce the CBAM and to request information from the UK Emissions Trading Scheme Authority or other national authorities. Could the Minister give a bit more of a flavour of when more detail about the operation of CBAM will be coming? As well as queries about the implementation, I've also heard concerns about the impact this measure may have on businesses and consumers. The NFU have raised concerns about the impact CBAM may have on vital sectors and particularly pushing up the cost of fertilisers. My humble friend for Gordon Buchan raised. This is a particular concern, for example, for the arable sector where fertiliser makes up 12% of total farm costs, and higher costs can come at a worse time when they're also facing the impact of the family farm tax. And the NFU has also raised concerns that such a tax could create an unlevel playing field for British farmers and growers, and consequently, a bit like the changes to inheritance tax, the NFU will be working up to develop their own impact assessment to fully understand the impact of this tax policy on the industry. And I hope that the Minister will keep this under close scrutiny in the coming months. As I set out, we won't be opposing this clause, but I look forward to the Minister's response.
I thank Mr. Wild for those, Honourable Member, for those questions. I'd just like to, obviously, I think he knows this from his comments, but obviously this clause is a sort of paving measure for the legislation that will be introduced, and therefore there will be further detail in draft legislation which will come in a future finance bill. So I'm not able to give him that detail today, but I take into account what he said. This clause is paving legislation, and draft legislation will be published for industries who are going to be affected to comment on. So I reassure him that some of the issues that he's raised will be taken into account.
The question is that Clause 83 stand part of the bill, as many of that opinion say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. We now come to Clause 84. The question is that Clause 84 stand part of the bill. Minister Emma Reynolds.
Mrs. Babb, I hope that this Clause 84 will not be controversial, for it makes changes to ensure that various errors, although we're always surprised by the honourable members opposite, it makes changes to ensure that various errors and omissions in 3 pieces of legislation are corrected. So I'll go through these in turn. Firstly, subsection 1 and then section 151 1D of the I've got the number wrong, I'm sure. It's a very confusing number. Of the Taxation and Charitable Gains Act 1992, which defines financial inclusion for the purposes of legislation on the provision of alternative finance in Chapter 4. This definition includes persons who are authorised to provide credit. Authorisation of such persons was previously the responsibility of the Office of Fair Trading, but moved to the Financial Conduct Authority. That's the first. To reflect this change in responsibility, the definition of financial institution was amended in both the Income Tax Act 2007 and Corporation Tax Act 2009. However, the mirror legislation found in the Taxation of Chargeable Gains Act 1992 was overlooked, and subsection 1 will make similar changes to the Act to ensure the definition of financial institution is consistent across the relevant capital gains tax, income tax and corporation tax legislation. Secondly, subsection 2 corrects the procedure for making regulations under 14A of the Corporation Tax Act 2009. The current wording requires regulations to be made by a statutory instrument, subject to annulment by either House of Parliament. This is incorrect, as financial regulations are a reserved matter for the House of Commons only. This clause corrects the error by requiring regulations to be laid before the Commons only. Take back control. Lastly, subsection 3 corrects a typographical error in section 4 of the Taxation Post-Transition Period Act 2020 concerning excise duty on the removal of goods to Northern Ireland. This correction removes a reference to section 42 of the Finance No. 2 Act 2023 and inserts the correct reference to section 47 of the Act. In summary, Mrs. Vaz, the changes made by clause 84 will ensure that legislation accurately reflects the policy intent and removes possible confusion for readers. I therefore move that this clause stands part of the bill.
Shadow Minister Gay.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So let me just get this speech out. Clause 84 makes one of the more technical and minor amendments to various pieces of legislation, and so in the interests of good housekeeping, if nothing else, His Majesty's official opposition has no point to raise on this matter.
The question is that clause 84 stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. We now come to clause 85. The question is that clause 85 stand part of the bill. Mr. James Murray.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. To speak to the highly controversial clause 85, which sets out the legal interpretation in the usual manner of abbreviations in the legislation, I move that this clause stand part of the bill.
So, Minister Gowland.
Madam Chair, thanks to clause 85, I don't think anything remains to be interpreted, so I will sit down.
The question is that clause 85 stand part of the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. We now come to clause 86. The question is that clause 86 stand part of the bill. Minister James Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank my honourable friends for their wholehearted support for this important clause of the bill, which does, in the usual manner, set out the short title of the legislation, and I beg it remains part of the bill.
Minister James.
We have no surprise. We have nothing to add, Madam Chair, but let me take this opportunity, as it's the last time that I will speak before we get too emotional. Let me just thank you, Mr. Mundell, the clerks, all the officials that supported our ministers in front of us today, but in particular, on behalf of myself and my office, the Chartered Institute for Taxation and the Association for Tax Technicians in particular. I want to put on record my thanks to Luke Pike in my office, who provided great support throughout the preparation stage. And of course to all members of this committee, including the Lib and the Dem over there, and to my frenemies across the way. In particular, I want to thank the Honourable Member for Hales Owen, who actually grabbed me on the way out of the first session and told me that this is the best bill committee he has ever sat on. It is completely irrelevant that this is the first one he's ever sat on. So tell him that it's all downhill from here. But let me thank you again, and I'll let my honourable friend take it from here. Thank you.
would you like to say something? No one else? The question is that clause 86 stand part of the bill, as many of that opinion say aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. We now come to Government New Clause 1, which has already been debated. I call the Minister to move it formally.
I move formally.
Rates of vehicle excise duty for haulage vehicles other than showman's vehicles.
The question is that New Clause 1 be read a second time, as many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that New Clause 1 be added to the bill, as many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now come to New Clause 2, which has already been debated. Angus MacDonald to move formally.
Review of sections 63 and 64.
The question is that New Clause 2 be read a second time, as many as are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary, aye. Of the contrary, no.
No.
I think division. Do you want to push it to a division?
I'd like to, yeah.
Sorry?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Division. Lock the doors.
A vote sure.
Alex Ballinger. No. Nissel Calliskin. No. Harry Cross.
No vote.
Gareth Davis.
No vote.
Paul Kohler.
Aye.
Angus MacDonald. Aye. James Murray.
No.
Tristan Osborne. No. Gregor Poynton.
No.
Emma Reynolds.
No.
Blake Stevenson.
No.
Alistair Stratton.
No.
Christian Wakeford.
No.
James Wilde.
No vote.
Yuan Yang.
The ayes were 2, the noes were 9, so the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock. We now come to New Clause 3, which has already been debated. Gareth Davis to move formally.
I will be pushing this vote.
The question is that New Clause... So we don't...
We skip that.
New Clause 4? No. New Clause 4? You've got it down as locked. New Clause 4? No.
No. Fine.
We now come to New Clause 5, which has already been debated. James Wilde to move formally.
Move formally.
Review of effects of section 65 on illicit tobacco markets.
The question is that New Clause 5 be read a second time, as many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, no.
No.
Division. Lock the doors.
Alex Ballinger. Nissel Calliskin. Harry Cross.
Yes. Oh, aye.
Gareth Davis.
Aye.
Paul Kohler.
No vote.
Angus MacDonald. James Murray.
No.
Tristan Osborne. Gregor Poynton.
No.
Emma Reynolds.
No.
Blake Stevenson.
Aye.
Alistair Stratton.
No.
Christian Wakeford.
No.
James Wilde.
Aye.
Yuan Yang.
The ayes were 4, the noes were 9, so the noes have it. The noes have it. Unlock. We now come to New Clause 6, which has already been debated. James Wilde to move formally.
Move formally.
Review of effects of £40,000 expensive car supplement threshold.
The question is that New Clause 6 be read a second time. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, no.
No.
Division. Lock the doors.
Division.
Alex Ballinger. No. Nissel Calliskin. Harry Cross.
Aye.
Gareth Davis.
Aye.
Paul Kohler.
No vote.
Angus MacDonald. James Murray.
No.
Tristan Osborne. Gregor Poynton.
No.
Emma Reynolds.
No.
Blake Stevenson. Alistair Stratton.
No.
Christian Wakeford.
No.
James Wilde.
Aye.
Yuan Yang.
The ayes were 4 and the noes were 9. So the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock. They're not pushing 7.
Not pushing 7 or
4, 8, 9. We now come to new clause 10. I call James White.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vaz. And to help support growth, innovation and investment requires a competitive tax environment for business. And I speak to new clause 10, which would require the Chancellor within 6 months of this Act being passed to conduct a review of business taxes and lay before the House a report setting out recommendations arising from the review. Recommendations on how to use business tax to encourage and increase the investment of profits and revenue and ensure businesses have certainty about the taxes to which they are subject. Common theme throughout the committee has been the impact of the measures in the first Labour government budget for 14 years, and sadly we know that that budget and this finance bill introduces around 40 billion a year of tax increases, the biggest tax-raising budget in modern history. And it's businesses bearing the brunt, including the £25 billion a year jobs tax that the government promised repeatedly during the election not to introduce. And the government said its priority is growth, and we heard more about their plans yesterday. We didn't hear much about how their plans would deliver more growth in this Parliament rather than in the long term, which, while welcome, I think people are also interested in the here and now. And having inherited the fastest growing economy in the G7, the OBR then downgraded the growth rate by 0.7% over the forecast as a result of the measures in the budget. Borrowing costs we've seen rise to the highest level for 27 years. Inflation is above target and business confidence is plummeting. And that latter point lies behind this new clause because... I will give way.
Yeah,
thank you. And while I'm very much in support of reviews and know that the OBR is the right body to conduct ongoing reviews on the impact of taxation on growth, I wonder if the Honourable Gentleman might want to set out any direction that he or his party might want to take business taxes in, and if there is a certain direction there where the costs or savings may come from.
James White.
Well, would it be that we had the happy chance to be sitting in the Treasury making the policy decisions? It's the Chancellor who will bring forward another fiscal event. You may have to be taking some action to deal with the impact of her budget as a result. So this is about what the government is going to do in the review that it conducts to bring forward. And business confidence is essential for investment, but it's been damaged by this government when it first came in, talking down the economy. We now hear a much more positive tone, talking about the strong fundamentals of our economy, the strengths that we have, all points that we were making throughout our period in office and encouraging the government to do when they came in, but they wanted to talk about a fantasy black hole and the worst economic inheritance, and that's done a lot of damage to our economy. The latest CBI growth indicator shows private sector firms expect a significant fall in activity over the next 3 months. The latest PMI flash showed that 1 in 4 businesses have cut costs due to employment costs. The ONS showed retail sales in December fell by 0.3%. This is a worrying state of affairs, and any members who speak to businesses will have heard the deep concerns over the hiking costs of employing people, the cut in business rate support for retail, leisure and hospitality businesses, and other measures. The budget put up taxes on entrepreneurs, wealth creators. It's driving people away from our country who create wealth. The energy profits levy puts at risk 35,000 jobs in Scotland and the North Sea. The family business tax, launched without any warning, has had a highly damaging impact on family farms and other family firms, and that's why a review of business taxation is so necessary, with the objective of encouraging increasing investment, but also to provide certainty for firms. The Minister's repeatedly spoken about certainty, so I hope he'll feel able to support this clause today.
Review of business taxes.
The question is that new clause 10 be read a second time. Thanks, MacDonald.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I support the opposition here, almost word for word? My career has been in business, and I have sat here for 2 days, and I have been really appalled by it. It's just tax increase upon tax increase upon tax increase. Small and medium-sized businesses all across the UK are absolutely on their knees, and we have done a catastrophic job since the budget of ruining things for businesses. Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. New Clause 10, which the Opposition Minister has just spoken to, makes changes to require the Government to conduct a review of business rates and makes recommendations on how to increase business certainty and investment before the next finance bill is published. The Government does not support this amendment. The Government keeps all taxes, including taxes paid by business, under review on an ongoing basis. At autumn budget, the Government published its corporate tax roadmap to provide certainty to businesses about the areas of the business tax system it intends to keep stable and the areas it intends to review over the course of this Parliament. The Government has also committed to a review of business rate system. At autumn budget, the Government published a discussion paper which set out the Government's priority areas for reform of the business rates tax system. The Government has therefore already set out the areas of the business rates system where it will provide stability, and given the existing processes and recent commitments, I therefore move that this clause be rejected.
I call James Wilde to respond.
Thank you very much. Ms Vaz, disappointing response from the Minister, if not predictable. We do need to have more certainty for businesses. Sorry?
Predictable.
Sorry. Sorry. It's been a long afternoon. I do think we need to provide that certainty. I think the amendment was intended to be constructive and to help frame the next fiscal event so that all of the issues that businesses have been talking to us about and raising have been addressed, and the issues that we're seeing in terms of business confidence and the actions that we saw yesterday, more companies laying people off. I think this is a very serious time. We need the government to be listening to what's happening. So I do intend to push this to a division.
New clause 10 proposed as on the amendment paper. The question is that the clause be read a second time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. Division, lock the doors.
Alex Ballinger. No. Nestle Couchman. No. Eric Cross.
Aye.
Gareth Davis.
Aye.
Paul Kohler.
Aye.
Angus MacDonald.
Aye.
James Murray.
No.
Tristan Osborne.
No.
Gregor Poynton.
No.
Emma Reynolds.
No.
Blake Stevenson.
Aye.
Asa Strathen.
No.
Christian Wakeford.
No.
James Wilde.
Aye.
Yuan Yang.
No.
The ayes were 6, the noes were 9, so the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock. We now come to new clause 11. I call James Wilde.
Thank you, Mrs Vaz. New clause 11 would require the Chancellor, within 6 months of the Act being passed, to publish an assessment of the impact of the changes in the Act on household finances. This assessment must consider how households at different income levels are affected by the changes. As we know, households are currently facing a number of challenges, and the measures in the bill and the budget will only serve to exaggerate. At the time of the budget, the OBR confirmed real household disposable income will be 1.2% lower by the start of 2029. The bulk of this difference, around 85%, is explained by the policies in the budget. It's because of the measures in the bill and the budget that growth is forecast to be lower over the forecast period than predicted in March last year. Higher borrowing means higher interest rates are forecast to be higher for longer, meaning mortgage rates are higher for longer. Borrowing costs have hit a 27-year high under this Chancellor. Hardly the stability that is her watchword. The government also inherited inflation at target. Since then, inflation has increased, meaning less money in people's pockets. And all of those effects will be felt by the working families the government said was their priority at the general election. And as we discussed in the Committee of the Whole House, Mr Vaz, the education tax in this bill will hit precisely those people who've chosen to prioritise providing for their children's education in the place they consider best suits their child's need. We on this side are for 100% of children. We back parents' freedom to choose. It's the party opposite which is adopting a self-defeating ideological approach to our education system, including to academies, that seeks to divide. That's an education tax that will hit 100,000 children who are in independent schools with special needs but without education, health and care plans. We've already seen children withdraw from schools as a result and schools closing. where measures such as increased duties, passenger duties, vehicle duties impact household finances directly, where borrowing costs have risen, then hard-working families are going to have to pay the costs. Excuse my voice, which is going. Any impact that the changes in the Act are having on households should be closely monitored, and that's what this new clause seeks to achieve.
Thank you.
Review of impact of tax changes in this Act on households.
The question is that new clause 11 be read a second time. Minister James Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. New Clause 11, as the Opposition Minister set out, requires the Government to report on the likely impact of the tax measures on households across the house income distribution. The Government already published this information in the Impact on Households report alongside the autumn budget, which illustrated the distributional impact of government measures that have a direct impact on household incomes, those measures that come from welfare benefits, tax paid, or the benefits in kind received through public services by UK residents. The analysis shows that the government decisions at the Autumn Budget 2024 and Spending Review 2025 Phase 1 are progressive. Increases to public service spending means that households are, on average, better off in 25-26 as a result of these decisions. The impacts of government decisions benefit households in the lowest income deciles the most, on average as a percentage of income in 25-26. The increases in tax are concentrated on the highest income households. Overall, on average, all but the richest 10% of households will benefit from policy decisions in 2025-26. Since the assessment of the budget on households across the income distribution has already been published, I would ask the member to withdraw his amendment.
I now call the mover.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vaz. In light of my failing voice, I will not be moving the next new clause, so this will be the last time I speak in the committee. So I want to thank you and Mr. Mundell and the clerks and the other officials, as well as members of the committee for this session, as well as echoing the thanks to the Chartered Institute of Taxation and others, and Billy Falcon in my office, who's done sterling work in supporting me on this. And I'm grateful to the Minister for his comments, and I'm sure the rest of the committee will be delighted that I seek their leave to withdraw this new clause.
Is it your pleasure that the new clause be withdrawn? New clause by leave withdrawn. You are not pressing new clause 12, which means just leaves me to say thank you to everybody. Yes, point of order, James Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may make a brief point of order to thank yourself and Mr. Mundell for chairing this committee, to thank all of the clerks and officials who have looked after us so well this week, as well as officials from the Treasury who have helped me in preparing for this bill. I'd like to also thank all honourable members here, both my honourable friends and members of the opposition. I've particularly enjoyed on a personal level interacting with the lead opposition spokesperson, our roles having been switched following events last July. But I know that despite our political differences, he is someone with whom I enjoy debating important matters relating to finance bills. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I look forward to seeing you back in report stage.
And I want to add my thanks to all the clerks who supported me in this role, and also to say to Mr MacDonald, you've done exceptionally well as a new member on a new committee. So take this as a good learning exercise. We learn every day. So the final question I must put is that I do report the bill as amended to the House. The question is that I do report the bill as amended to the House. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.